Good morning to everybody. This is Paidisetty Suresh, Chartered Accountant, KB&Co, Indiranagar, Bangalore. Let us discuss about the recent changes in GST Act. GST changes from October 2022. The following are the major changes which were effective from October 2022. First one is additional conditions for availment of ITC. They made some additional conditions for availment of ITC. And second one is cancellation of GST registration and issue of credit notes related, and amendment relating to GST 1. Fourth one, amendment relating to ITC eligibility GSTR 2B. Fifth one is amendment relating to GSTR 3B. Sixth one is ITC availment and matching of ITC. 7, transfer of balance in cash ledger within the same PAN. 8, no interest on ITC availed, not utilized. 9, e-invoicing for registered taxpayers having a turnover of 10 crores above and more is mandatory from 1st October 2022. These are the major changes what are effective from October 2022. Let us discuss one by one. Initially, from the effective from July 1st, 2017 onwards, there were 4 conditions mentioned in the Act for availment of ITC. First condition, recipient should have a tax, should be in the position of tax invoice or debit note. Second condition, goods, services or both had been received by the recipient. Third condition, tax on it has been actually paid to the government. Fourth condition, recipient has furnished the return. If these 4 conditions fulfilled, then recipient can take the credit of ITC. That is initially it was these 4 conditions were there in the GST Act. Subsequently, effective from 1st January 2022, they made it mandatory, saying that a tax invoice debit note should be appearing in the GST 2B. Even though if it is there in the GST 2A, recipient should not take the credit of ITC. And now, effective from 1st October 2022, they made it compulsory. They made changes in while availing the ITC. They clearly said that ITC has not been restricted. That means it should not be restricted by any act or rules of the GST Act, GST. So there will be auto-generated statement GST 2B consisting of 2 parts shall be provided in the GST portal. One part shall state eligible ITC which the recipient can avail and utilize. Second part shall provide the details of ITC which cannot be availed wholly or partly as may be prescribed. To know the restricted ITC, recipient shall have to check the second part. These are the main changes they made it into the for availment of ITC. Let us go to the second point. Cancellation of GST registration and issue of credit notes. Cancellation. GST is liable for cancellation if the composite dealer has not furnished the returns beyond 3 months, and regular taxpayer has not furnished returns beyond 6 months. So these cases, GST is liable for cancellation. So everybody should be careful before filing the returns, and they should not delay any returns beyond the prescribed time periods. For issue of credit notes, they mention the time limit on or before 30th November of the following year or due date of furnishing of the relevant annual return, whichever is earlier. For the annual return, due date is 31st December. So in this case, everybody, if they want to issue the credit notes, they should do before 30th November of the following year. Let us go to the third amendment. Amendment relating to the GSTR 1. Now they made it important changes. They made it that the recipient shall furnish in such form and manner within such time the details of outward supplies and shall communicate to the recipient. Going to specify the form and manner within such time. That is one changes in GST 1. And earlier there was a proposal of two-way communication between the recipient and seller, so that they do away with this communication process in written filing. So they dropped out that two-way communication process. And third one, any errors in GST 1, if anything is there, return of outward supplies can be rectified on or before 30th November of the following financial year. Earlier, it was on or before filing of September September return of the next financial year. Next change in GST 1, GST 1 cannot be filed without filing of GST 3B of the previous month. And next one, GST 1 cannot be filed without filing of GST 1 of previous months. So these are the main amendment they made it in with respect to the GST 1. Let us go to the fourth point. Amendment relating to the ITC eligibility GST 2B as per GST 2B. So auto-generated statement would reflect the list of suppliers eligible and ineligible for ITC availment. Now it will reflect in the 2B itself, which are the eligible, which are ineligible, that recipient can take the ITC. So list of suppliers which are said to be ineligible would consist of suppliers. They specifically mentioned that these are the suppliers whose invoices will be ineligible. It will be reflected into the GST 2B. First point, supplier in the cooling period of taking new registration. Suppose in the supplier has applied for the new registration and they'll specify the cooling period. Within that period, they cannot, recipient cannot take the ITC of the supplier invoices. Second point, and supplier who has defaulted tax payment for continuous period, they cannot take. Supplier who has paid lesser tax in GST 3B compared to GST 1. If supplier has paid lesser tax, so recipient cannot take the ITC of such suppliers invoices. Supplier who has availed ITC more than the allowed limit, then such invoices also recipient cannot take. Supplier who defaulted in complying mandatory payment of tax liability in cash, that is 1% of tax liability, such invoices and all, they should not take the ITC. So these are the important changes in ITC eligibility. And let us go to the next amendment relating to GST 3B. Any errors in GST 3B, return of outward supplies can be rectified on or before 30th November of the following year. Earlier, it was on or before filing of the September return of the following year. So they have a given time limit before 30th November. They can rectify anything. And GST 3B cannot be filed without filing of GST 1. If you have not filed GST 1, you cannot file the 3B. One more they have made into the given into the system 3B. They given option to pay either self-assessment tax or an ad hoc amount like quarterly return filers. Coming to the sixth point, ITC availment and matching of ITC. Concept of claim of eligible ITC on a provisional basis and availment of self-assessment ITC. They brought into this concept, and in case tax has not paid by the supplier, ITC shall be reversed along with applicable interest. ITC can be re-availed once it is paid by the supplier. Concept of GST 2 and 3, GST 3 has been done away with. Earlier, they planned that GST 2 and 3B will be filed. Whatever now we are doing 3B and 2B, all are a provisional returns. That is what earlier it was mentioned. Now, the concept of GST 2 and 3 has been done away. Coming to the next point. So, transfer of balance in cash ledger within same PAN. Now they're given an option to allow the transfer of balance in electronic cash ledger to electronic credit ledger of another GSTN within the same PAN. Shall not be allowed if there is any unpaid tax liability, suppose in other GST, if they have any unpaid tax liability, then and that cannot be transferred to the another GST within the same PAN. So transfer of balance they allowed now. To give legal backing to the Rule 8B, 1% of tax liability to be paid in cash, government can specify the maximum limit of output tax that can be paid using credit ledger. Now what happened? Everybody using 100% of the ITC utilizing for the payment of output tax. So now to give the backing, legal backing to Rule 86B, they're going to specify the maximum limit of output tax that can be paid through using credit ledger. And coming to the eighth point, no interest on ITC availed but not utilized. Retrospective amendment from the 1st July 2017, no interest to be levied for the ITC wrongly availed and not utilized. That is one point they specified clearly and mentioned. Coming to the interest rate. Interest rate is clarified at 18% for wrongly utilized ITC instead of 24%. E-invoicing for registered taxpayers having a turnover of 10 crores and above, it is mandatory from effective from October 2022. So everybody, they have to start the e-invoicing from 1st October 2022. If their turnover during the 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 2021, if that is crossed turnover 10 crores and above, then they have to be mandatorily start the e-invoicing. That's all. Thanks. Subscribe our YouTube channel, Tax Factory.